What's up, everybody? Welcome to the High Level Husband Podcast. I'm Tommy McCollister, and today we are joined by Chelsey Holm, who is one of my favorite people. We connected about a couple of years ago. Her and her husband actually came through our coaching program. Well, we're doing really good in life in a lot of different aspects, but what I love about her is she's always trying to improve in so many different areas. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have her on today. But she also wears multiple hats in so many different areas, which I know a lot of people struggle with in their marriages, in their personal lives, and so many things like that. And so there's no better person that I would want to have on here. So I got a bunch of amazing questions. We're going to dive into so many different things. And Chelsey, when her and her husband came in our program, one of the things they were wanting to level up was within their intimacy. So stay tuned, guys, because I already know that's what all you perverts out there want to talk about is intimacy and all of that stuff. So we'll get into that, but and whatnot. But Chelsey, thank you so much for coming on. Give us a little bit of a scoop of like who you are, what you're about, and all of that before we get into the goods.
For sure. Well, thanks for having me. This is so fun. It's funny because I told Zach, I said, "Oh yeah, Tommy's having me on his podcast," and he's like, "Really?" And he was like, "What time?" And I said, "What, do you want to be on it too?" And he's like, "Well, maybe." So maybe more episodes in the future.
100%.
Oh yeah. So what am I about? It's funny that you say like I wear all these hats. Like my problem is not wearing the hats. My problem is like not putting on too many hats. Like because I just am someone who is committed to growth and always wants to be better than I was yesterday. Now I don't do it perfectly, but my big focus is mindset and consistency. And it's so funny because like what you do aligns so well with like what I do and who I am. And that's really what attracted us to you, in the reel that I saw in doing your program, because you were focused on like, okay, like here's what you want, right? But how do you actually walk that out in the everyday life, like in the small steps that we're doing consistently? So, I love the Lord. I have 5 kids. I'm married to my husband, Zach, for over 15 years now. And we actually just found out today where we're moving next.
Okay.
So nobody else knows, but we're going to Kansas for just a year while Zach
Oh, wow.
does his next course in the military. So that'll be interesting, a new adventure as always. I would say adventure is probably one of the biggest words that I would use to describe the life that I love. Is everything's always an adventure, and we like keeping things that way. And it's so funny because I grew up thinking, oh, I want to buy a house and live there forever. And God knew better. I'm so not that person. Like I get bored easily. I want a challenge, except for when I'm in the challenge, then I don't want the challenge, right? Like
Yeah.
who can relate to that? Like give me the challenge until I'm in it. So I got started in network marketing, and I'm still in the network marketing industry, and I've made a shift to more so coaching now for network marketers, specifically social sellers, leaning into the fact that we have this amazing tool of connection to anybody in the world at any time, and helping people to really have that third option. Like that is my life. I always see like we have option A or option B, and I'm like, I think we can make an option C here, that third option. So that's what I love to help people do, especially for moms who stay at home, that like the world says you have to choose your career or stay at home. And I'm like, how about we do both, right? Like without sacrificing or compromising any of it. And so that's why I do what I do. Is I love helping people, but helping people help themselves. Because if you just help somebody, well, okay, maybe they're helped for a day, but if you help them to help themselves, then they can actually turn around and help other people. And so that's really where my passion lies, in encouraging people, but also giving them practical steps to change their own lives. So that's a little about me.
Yes, and I love all of that about you. I mean, obviously I know a lot about that, but that's why I was so excited to have you on, is because people get to see that energy, and that there's a different way of doing things. You said it so good that so many people feel like there's only one way to do things, is, we can only be a mom, or we can only be a dad who goes to work and just grinds, and that's all we do. Like we're just like a one-trick pony. And like that's when life gets really, really boring, right? Because like I love what you said about like adventure and doing new things. Whereas you didn't think that was going to be you, but now that is you, like you love it and can't do without it. Whereas so many people, we get scared. And that was me for so long. I mean, before Diane ever moved here or started this business, we were stuck in the same city for so many years because change was so scary. Now, like, we're addicted to it. Like, that's like our thing every day. Like, what scary thing we're going to do today? What new thing are we going to do? But that's what keeps life exciting in so many things. Anything we do in life, right? Like, you're into fitness as well. Our
Mm-hmm.
muscles won't grow. We're going to plateau if we're doing the exact same things all the time. And then it just gets boring. Same thing in marriage, same thing in business, same thing in life. So we always got to be switching it up. I think that's just where a lot of people get stuck in marriage, right? Whereas they, like you said it best, like that's why you were and Zach were attracted to us, because it wasn't just like, hey, let's just talk about how we can fix your communication and do all these other simple tools, which are important, but none of that matter if you're stuck in a rut in like your adventure, or not doing new things, or your mindset's low, or you're personally struggling. None of that. I could give you the best communication tools in the world, won't matter, right? And so I love that's what you stand for in so many ways, because so many people, I think one of the things that I'd love to know more about is that you, like you said, you do businesses, you are a mom of 5, your husband's in the military, so he's not like he goes to work from 9 to 5 and comes home every night. Like sometimes that's weeks without him there, but yet you're still doing all of these things. But as you know, and I know, everybody says what? They're too busy. I can't do those things. I'm only can do this. I can't. I wish I could do that. Sure would be nice. They have no idea that Chelsey has 5 kids, that you run multiple businesses, that your husband's in the military, right? Like that you're about to move again. Well, moving in itself is like stressful enough, let alone doing all that other stuff. And so I sympathize with the people that say they're too busy, but at the same time, I get bold about it because I said that, but then now I understand that that's not the case. Like that's just a belief system. So with where you're at in life and things like that, what would you say is like your reason why, and you're able to go above that, where it would be so easy for you to just say, I am too busy. This is all I'm going to do, and call it good. Right. But then I already know that would kill your spirit, because that's not who you are. You wouldn't be bubbly like this if that's where you stayed. Right. So I'd love to know like a little bit deeper of like what pushes you above that, whereas so many people stop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, time is finite, right? But it's a resource, just like anything else. But whereas our energy is renewable, our money is renewable, our time is not. And so it's funny, people always ask me, well, how do you do everything? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't. And second of all, I highly prioritize sleep. So let me tell you, I am not burning the candle at both ends in order to get stuff done. I don't. So I get a lot of sleep. Like I need 8 to 10 hours a night or I just don't function well.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's been a mindset shift. I want to say it was probably, I don't know, 4 years ago now, but I read a book called The Big Leap by, I can't remember the name, but I'm sure you can put it in your show notes or something once you figure out what his name is. Gay Hendricks, I think. But he talked about how, time is finite, but at the same time, it is very relative. Because if you look at, successful people around the world, everyone has 24 hours in a day. But why is it that some people are really successful with the time that they have and other people are not? Like, they don't get it done, whether they're too busy or they're just not doing the things that they could be doing, right? And I'll be honest with you, actually, the busier I am, the more productive and successful I am. Because when I don't have anything on the calendar, I go into Netflix and chill mode. And I'm like, I can do that later. I got all the time in the world. So I am actually much more efficient and successful when I have a full calendar, because then I'm like, yeah, let's go. Like, we got this schedule. Like, this is what we're doing. And I would just tell everyone who's listening that if you struggle with time, it really is about your perspective on it, because time is time and you're assigning a meaning to it. So this is where it comes in as me as a mindset coach, that like data, we perceive data. So things said to you, things happening around you, things that are done, those kinds of things. And then we assign a meaning to it, right? Everyone has a perspective on everything that's happening around us. And when we assign that meaning to, okay, I don't have enough time, or I'm too busy, or whatever, like that's our story. And then that creates the emotions that we have. So then that makes us feel overwhelmed or whatever, right? And so people think like, well, the reason that I feel overwhelmed is because I don't have enough time, and time is finite. But time is time, like I said. but it's your story around time that is actually creating your feeling of overwhelm, which then prompts you to do or not do things, and that actually creates the results in your life. And so if you can just shift the way that you look at time, you can change everything. Like, even if I'm running late for something, which my daddy taught me, if you're not 20 minutes early, you're late. So I don't run late often, but there are times where I'm cutting it close, and I'll look at the clock, and instead of being like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get ready in time, I'll tell myself, you know what? I have time to do all the things that are most important to me. I have plenty of time for those things. And everything else, they'll happen or they won't happen, and it's not a big deal because those aren't priorities. So I really think that that is the biggest thing for people, is to have a different perspective of time, really how you think about it. Because my mother-in-law just recently retired in the last couple of years, and she is busier now than she has ever been in her life. And so I just tell people, like, life is always busy. It doesn't matter what season you're in. Like, I thought when my kids went to school, I would have so much more time. No, now they're in sports and I have less time, and I'm running around and in the car like all the dang day long. And I have less time than I did when they were little, because at least when they were little, it was chaotic, but we were home most of the time. So I actually had a lot more time then. So time is always busy, and time moves in seasons too. So, like, you know, in the fall, different sports start, and you know, different classes that we're involved in at church, or different groups. But then they eventually come to an end, and there's usually like a little pause in between, and you get to decide what your busy is moving into the next season. You know, if it was too much, well, maybe put one less thing on the calendar. If it wasn't enough, maybe put one more thing on the calendar. You know, so it's this, instead of looking at things as so finite, look at things as constantly moving and shifting. And you are the one who decides how you spend your time for the most part, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are things we have to do, but everyone does them differently. And so it really is about how we look at time and our priorities.
No, that's so good. Because like you said, you know, your mother-in-law just retires, but now she's more busier than ever. Because how many people in life are thinking, okay, you know, especially if we fall into the normal mold, college, 2 kids, picket fence, work job till 65. And then at 65, like, I'll have saved up so much that then I'll live life. Like, yo, your mother-in-law is just more busier. But then typically we don't know our health issues, or maybe your help taking care of your kids' situations. We don't know what's going to happen. So, like, let's live it up today and let tomorrow worry about itself. As the Bible says, tomorrow worry about itself, right? We'll figure that out tomorrow, instead of living in the what ifs. And that's so many things I think that stop people, right? Is their mindset around it, and just worrying about the what ifs. Oh no, then this is going to happen. Then this is going to happen. Then this is going to happen. It might. So you're going to have to deal with it either way. So why stress about it, you know, and those things. And I love that you said the more busier you are, the more productive that you are. That was a huge revelation in our life a couple of months ago. And it was a cool moment because, you know, I mean, as you know, like, I'm probably more of the more primary coach in our coaching program. But Diane's been growing more and more. And she was coaching on a call recently, and she said we were challenging a female to add more stuff to their life. Like, hey, you know, you're not doing anything productive for yourself. You know, you're being a good mom and a good wife. That's awesome. But we're not put on this earth to just be a mom and just be a wife, or just be a dad and just be a husband, right? We're called for more things. And so we were challenging her to, you know, be in the word. I love the Lord, but I just don't have time to read the word. I want to get fit, but I don't have time for it. And Diane was like, said the exact same thing you said there, Chelsey. She was saying, the more I added to my schedule, the less busier I got, because I actually was more productive, and I was feeling more accomplished. And because I was feeling more accomplished, I removed the feelings of overwhelmness, and it put in the feelings of confidence, of love and joy. So I didn't see myself as busy anymore. I just saw myself as winning, and it was fun to accomplish more and more things. Whereas that's a completely backwards thought process for most people, right? Like, I'm going to add more to my things to actually be less overwhelmed. But it's the exact same thing. The days I feel the worst about myself is if it's Sunday and I'm just like, I'm just going to chill today and I'm going to watch football. One game turns to 2, which is very rarely. I feel my energy so low. I feel terrible about myself. Like, I got to get up and at least go get like some kind of a cardio or something in to get my energy back up. And so when we do less, it's so crazy how it kills our spirit in so many different ways. And so I love that
Mm-hmm.
perspective that you have. You know what's crazy? I was thinking about this before I started. We jumped on the podcast. Is we've been doing this podcast now for maybe a little over a year. Last year it wasn't in 23 wasn't a big focus of ours. It was more of like a fun thing. This year it's going to be a real big focus of ours. So it was mainly just me and Diane, and I've only had one other guest on, and it was another female. And it's called the High Level Husband Podcast, right? So it's like I
Right.
love leading men, probably preferably, but Diane's on it. The other coach who was on it was a female. Now you're on it, and it was a cool moment for myself thinking about that this morning because the newest mastermind I joined is led by a powerful female. Like I've also, the one mastermind I just got out of for 16 months was led by a man. So it's not like I'm just like only having females in my life. Like most of the people in my life are actually males. Point of telling this story is that when I was telling a friend of mine that I joined a mastermind that was being led by a woman, and it's going to sound bad, he said, man, that's awesome you did that, but I have a hard time being led by a woman. And that sounds very bad, right? But he's a good dude, but like that's still a block in his life. Well, no wonder his marriage is not in a good spot because he sees himself as, well, my way or the highway. There is sometimes leaders, right? But sometimes Diane's the leader in those things. So with my long-winded story on this is I have no problem being led by women. I see women's greatness, but I also know that like sometimes my biggest coaching advice I've gotten the past year has been from Diane, who's coached me through things, which has been awesome. But from your perspective of being a strong female leader in so many people's lives and in your family, because I know how your voice is strong in your family as well, where do you think people go wrong with that, of allowing the women in their life, or just in general, to have that stigma of like, well, I need to be the leader, and if they're not, then their insecurities are getting kicked around, right? And then now we see marriage problems. So what's your thought process on all of that?
Oh, this is an exciting question. I love this. So if you want an example of what it looks like for a strong woman to take the head of her household and to destroy her marriage, you can just look back at mine and Zach's marriage from, I don't know, 10 years ago, because that's what happened. So there's this unique dynamic I've found that because I am a strong, opinionated, rebel, no one tells me what to do kind of girl. And so how does a woman lead? Like how God wants her to, while also empowering her husband to be the leader of the family, right? Like how does that dynamic work, right? Because there can't be two leaders of the family per se, right? And God clearly established man as the head and the leader of the family, the one responsible for the family. And so it is interesting. And I always tell Zach that I couldn't be married to so-and-so or so-and-so because I'm too strong of a woman for them, and they wouldn't have the balls to be able to lead me in a way that is honoring to God and honoring to our marriage. Mm-hmm. And he just always laughs. He's like, yeah, because no one tells you what to do. I'm like, except you. Like, he is the only one who has the authority over me to be able to, draw the hard lines for me when I need them. Which doesn't happen often. Like, it's very rare that he has to put his foot down and be like, no, and tell me no. You know what I mean? But there are many times where he has to kind of, calm me down and bring some calmness. That's just the best way to describe it. Because, so for example, when the whole thing with COVID was going on and he's in the military and, they're pushing the vax. I don't know if we can talk about this on here. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let it fly.
All right. As soon as I found out, they're going to kick him out if he doesn't get it. And we were pretty strong on the fact that we were not, he was not going to get it. And I was fired. I was like, just quit now. Just leave. Just walk away. And he's like, honey, he's like, I appreciate your fiery passion and how you stand on what is right and true. However, we need to be calm and we need to be patient. And, he even saw from the beginning, he's like, we just need to basically be more patient and stubborn than the forces that be. And that's exactly what happened. Like eventually it got tabled and nothing really came to fruition because of it. But there were definitely some moments of like, oh man, here it comes, like head on the chopping block, like this is it. But that never happened. So it's in moments like that where it is really difficult for me to lead respectfully with him still as the head leader. So like I don't follow other men. Like other men don't tell me what to do. And yeah, so I guess when it comes to like a coaching role or something like that, then obviously, yeah, like then it's a different dynamic and things. So I don't know if I'm answering your question at all, but I feel like this is a really interesting dynamic, right? Like how does a strong woman and a strong man still honor God in their roles and responsibilities with both technically being a leader, but one really officially
Right.
being the leader and one being the support, but still having that freedom to lead in the way that God's calling, right? Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I guess is what I'm. Yeah, like so that's great, and I could got multiple things I want to touch on, but it's like allowing Chelsey to be Chelsey, right?
yeah,
Whereas like you said, you're a strong woman, so I know the way you talk to Zach is confidently, not in like an argumentative thing, just in your passion. Whereas a lot of people feel like they can't even do that to their husband, or their husband can't hear those type of things from their wife because they're the dominant force, right? In those things.
well, I
Whereas
do.
I believe Zach lets you
We
speak.
have grown a lot because it definitely, as I said, like 10 years ago or so, it was not a healthy dynamic because I didn't feel like he was leading in the way that I thought he should. And so I put on the pants and said, I will lead and I will lead it better. And let me just tell you, women are not
Mm,
meant to lead their families in that way. It doesn't go well. That's not how God gave us strengths. Even though I will say I feel like I tend to be more masculine than feminine in a lot of things. So I think I had a lot of the characteristics that a typical man would have. And so I think that's what enabled me to lead when I had to, but it still wasn't a healthy dynamic. And essentially it emasculated him where he didn't want to even try to lead anymore, and
mm,
honestly, once we made that shift where I gave up complete control and said, here, you lead, I'm done, at least, for our family, like you need to be the one responsible. And oh my gosh, blew me away. Like he's a way better leader of our family than I am. As I said, I
mm,
am very like quick to make rash decisions where he is very calm and
mm.
responsible. And, so he has done a much better job than me. So yeah, it is an interesting dynamic. But I think it takes a strong man to lead a strong woman. It really does.
Hmm.
But just because you're a strong woman doesn't mean that you're disrespectful to your husband and you don't honor him and
Right,
follow him above all, right?
right. Encourage him and
Right.
allow him to take that reins because we all go through our moments that we're lower in our self-worth and our confidence that may not have to do anything with our marriage, maybe because something's happened at work or
Mm.
whatever's happening in our life, right? Giving them that chance to grow that. What I love what you were saying there is that you gave it back to him and you gave him that space to do it. Well, then it allowed him room to be able to do it. Whereas so many people are like, well, how do I rebuild trust in my marriage after, whether that's infidelity or anything? If you don't give them the rope to be able a chance to do it, they're never going to be able to do it. If it's just like, so with even in that situation, which you're talking about, with giving them the reins back, it's like, you have to be able to give them the rope and the chance to prove that they are a good leader. But if they're like on a ticking bomb, like, okay, you got 3 days to show me you're the most amazing. It's like, dude, it ain't going to work. Like
Right.
you have to be able to give that time for them to do it, to be able to prove it in those things. And so, that's amazing that you guys, were able to do that. But like you said a little bit ago, you said, you know, Zach is the only person that, he is able to lead me. What is that about him that is able to do it? Because I know this is where a lot of men miss the mark, right? They think that leadership is, and I'm not saying all of you guys out there think this way or anything like that, but that leadership is ruling with an iron fist, raising your voice, telling you how it is. Like, that's not leadership. And whether you're in a business or in a marriage, that's not good leadership, right? What is it about Zach that makes you be like, that's great leadership, I will follow? in those senses,
Mm-hmm.
because I know it's not the other way of the iron fist type stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's his love for the Lord above all, because I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I trust God above him, but because he is trusting God, I can fully trust him in his leadership. That doesn't mean he's going to lead perfectly. It doesn't mean I'm going to follow perfectly, but I can trust
Mm-hmm.
that he's in the word. He is following the Lord. And even if we make mistakes, we'll make mistakes together. And it's interesting because he does have a natural tendency to lead in the ways that you said, like men typically think like iron fist, yelling. And I will say those are areas where communication skills have helped us so much, because it's allowed us to have the hard conversations where we're not in the same, either coming at it from the same direction, or we're just not seeing eye to eye. The communication skills that we have learned has really helped us in those situations, to not fall into typical traditional, like he yells, because I don't follow well in those situations. Like, I don't like to be told what to do, but because I know he's trusting
Mm-hmm.
God and he loves me, I can step back in a safe place and really have that space I need to calm my butt down and think about it from his perspective. So when you ask, like, what is that one thing, it's really his trust in the Lord, and seeing how he's doing
Mm.
that. That's the biggest thing for me, because that gives me the security that I need, that
Yeah.
he's not leading me astray, and he's not
Yeah.
doing it. One thing that we learned, and I think this was from working with you, was just that, our intention is never to hurt each other. We have like, we not expect, but we just assume the best of each other. So even if I misunderstand what he's trying to do or how he's trying to lead, I can still trust him, because I know I'm looking at it from, he has my best interest in mind. And I know that he would never
Mm-hmm.
intentionally try to hurt me. So even if his words get pokey, which was what I say, because as he gets passionate, he gets loud, and his words can get really sharp and they can hurt me. And so I'll say, your words are a little pokey right now. And he'll take that as, okay, I'm just getting passionate. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm just, trying to express
Mm-hmm.
myself. And he tends to escalate volume a lot. And I don't like that. And so the communication skills we've learned has been really helpful for that. But truly
Mm.
knowing that we have each other's best interest at heart always is the bottom line.
Mm. Yeah, that's great. And I love that you said, like, being that spiritual leader and that he loves the
Mm-hmm.
Lord, because then his guidance is coming from hearing God's voice, right? Like, so I'm in
Mm-hmm.
Romans right now, and I'm in Romans 12:2. Obviously it talks about, don't conform to the patterns of the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your, mind. Then it goes in there and it talks about, by
Mm-hmm.
doing this, you'll understand God's will and hear his voice better and things like that. And by doing that, then we can trust, like you're saying, that he's got his best interest, and the instructions he's getting is from the person that
Yeah.
I trust the most, right? So it's going to be there. Whereas, like, when we don't have a spiritual leadership in the house, or the man isn't being a spiritual leader, it creates a vacuum, right? Like, because now it's the world that's doing it, right? Like, we're trying to keep up with the
Mm-hmm.
Joneses or whatever it is. It's like the worldly things. Well, then that's not going to be the best voices. Or our friends are our best spiritual leaders, not spiritual, but just
Mm-hmm.
leaders. And maybe their marriage is terrible, and that's where they're getting their advice from, right? But if you have strong other men in your life, or women, and we're all getting advice from somebody who really follows the Lord, not just believes, right, but
Right.
actually follows the Lord, then our guidance is there. And so I love that you said spiritual leader, because it goes into what really makes somebody attractive. I guess in this we can transfer into intimacy. Is obviously, when we're young or we meet somebody, obviously the first thing that's kind of attractive about the person is their looks, right? Like, and it is kind of surface level at first, but then that only lasts for so long. It's like that funny meme that everybody's, well, at least us guys have seen. It was like of a hot chick, and it was like, somebody in this world is fed up, sick and tired of this girl's crap right now and just wants her to leave. She's like a supermodel, because after a while that it goes away,
Yeah.
right? Like, I still think Diane's beautiful, but that's like the least thing about her that makes me the most attracted, right? Like, it's her way she loves the Lord, the way she talks to me, the way she leads our kids and things like that. That's when I like get the most attracted to her. And so obviously as a man's like the main physical things I always say, like being a great parent physically is a part of it, leading ourselves well, not letting ourselves go, being a spiritual leader, being mentally
Mhm.
poised, like when you were saying with Zach, and hey, I made quit the military. And he says, honey, I appreciate you, right? So he honors you, doesn't get rattled, and then stays poised in a tumultuous, conversation, but then just in a time,
Mhm.
right? So being mentally strong, right? All of those things, right? Like I'd love for you to touch on like what are those attractive traits for you, right? That's like, yo, he still does it for me after 15 years, still turns me on. I got 5 kids, a business, and all these other things. Intimacy is his love language, physical touch.
Mhm.
What allows that to keep going there, and what is it about him that still sees like, whew, this is my guy and I'm stoked he's my man, and he does it for me. So I know spiritual leadership is one of it, but I love you to talk about that because I think a lot of men have no idea what that really is, of why their wives are not attracted to
Yeah.
them.
Well, and you know us, you know our story. Like physical intimacy is his primary. Like he wants to be desired by me, and he desires me. So he still drools over me, which I'm a mess a lot of times because I was just a surrogate, so now I'm like pumping all the time, so I'm constantly like moo because that's what I feel like I'm just a milk maker these days. But that doesn't bother him at all. Like honestly, he amazes me, and I always tell him like, I mean, he is hot. Like he is. He smells great. He takes care of himself. Like he's one sexy hunk of man. But those are the things that don't really like motivate me. That when it comes to intimacy for us. But I'll tell you, what turns me on is when I see him like killing it in his job. Like when I see him leading an army call where he's just like taking nobody's crap and writing down names and just like spitting fire, like I love that. And I think it's just because he is walking out the passions that God has put in him, and he is leaning into the giftings that God has given him, and that that is what I love. Like I love it when he has a passion at work for leading new soldiers, and like financially, like helping them to understand like their TSP, their retirements, like all this stuff, and like putting money in. And he loves mentoring. Like that is where his heart is mentoring. Technically, that's not a part of his job, and because he's an officer, he doesn't get to do as much of that anymore. So when I get to see him, or he tells me about like, oh yeah, we had this new soldier, and I sat him down in my office and we talked about all this, and he was super excited about the budget sheet that he made, which I don't get excited about budget sheets, but he does. Um, I love seeing him excited about those kinds of things when he's walking out those gifts that God has put in his heart and in his life. Yeah, like I just love it because he just took over command in his unit, and it's a very temporary thing, but he just listening to him like talking about leading this call last night and how he's really setting the precedence of like
Mhm.
these are my expectations, this is what like that is fire. I just love it. I love listening to him and watching him do his thing, because I don't get to see that often. Like he's at work, I'm here, I don't get to see him um really walk out those giftings. So yeah, for sure. And
Mm.
of course parenting,
I love
like,
all of that. And
like those kinds of things are great too, but it's just really that. But I think that's because I'm someone who is an achiever and, wants to get out there and get stuff done. Like so that's what really fires me up for sure.
yeah, because it's your love language, like, right, you could have growth driven conversations all day long. So then when you get to have them with your spouse, like that's when it gets
Yes.
special,
Yes.
because not only is this person, your lover, but your parent, you parent co-parenting, you're doing all these things, like, but then when you can have growth driven conversations with like, that's when Diane and I's relationship, like, went from, I always say we had like I thought we probably had a 10 out of 10 because we didn't
Mhm.
argue and our intimacy was pretty good. But really looking back, we probably had 8 out of 10 just because we were missing things that, like growth driven conversations, it was 0% of her life. And then once she got to the point now where like if some is probably gonna sound bad. Like, don't get me wrong, I love sex as much as the next man, but I enjoy a amazing conversation with her that's like vision casting and we're doing this and this is what I learned today and she's telling me those things. Like that is what makes me like, I'd rather have that than like a steamy bedroom thing any day. And people can probably think I'm weird, but I tell you what, that's become so special because those things can be all day long. The bedroom obviously can't be all day long, right? And so I love that. But when you guys are hearing about Zach right here, he's amazing. And one, I just love the way you light up when you talk about him. Two, you know, what we're missing a key aspect of Zach's personality here is that he is a funny, lighthearted dude, you know. So you're saying he's leading these, you know, in the army and he's like telling people he's going to take charge and all these things. We're thinking like this guy's like probably like, I don't know, one of those military guys that's an a-hole. Like he's the farthest thing from that. Like he's just
Someone
funny
called
dude.
him an a-hole. They're like, oh yeah, that guy Zach, he's like totally an a-hole in the office. And I'm like, someone, who are they talking about? Like, that's not you at all, you know? Because, you know, he's the most caring guy ever. He's funny. He's always joking.
Yeah.
But when it's time to, like, be serious and stuff, like, he does. 100%.
He can do it. So I'm sure you know Patrick Bet
No.
David, right? You know who Patrick Bet David is?
No.
You don't know Patrick Bet
Do
David?
I
Okay,
need
you got to
to?
look
Okay.
him up. I'm gonna send him some stuff for yours.
Okay.
Oh gosh, yes, because you'll love him because one, because of our similar conservative beliefs and things. Two, business leader, way he leads his family. I'll send you a podcast. He was on Tom Bilyeu recently, but dude's a savage. Anyways, he was talking about that recently, that your wife, your kids, and other people in your life need to know that you can get to that spot of like, yo, do not get me to this spot because I will handle my business if I need it. Not in like a angry, like uncontrollable way, but I can handle my own. Do not get me there because I can do it. You need to know that. But because of that, we're just going to have so much fun in all these other areas because there's respect of being able to do that. So you need to have both of those where you got this side of you where, yes, you are a strong person, who those things, but it doesn't have to be you at all times. Cause sometimes that's like an insecurity thing where I'm always just right. Like I'm going to be fun. I'm going to laugh because at the end of the day, that's super fun to do life when we're laughing and joking. Your kids want you to be playful. Your wife wants you to be playful, but they also want to know that you're an ass kicker at the exact same time. Be able to be all of that. And obviously some of you guys listen to this are not that. Develop that. Doesn't mean all of a sudden you got to be the funniest guy in the room and you got to be the most successful guy in the room. Slowly develop those things, but just be well-rounded. And that's where a lot of times in life where we struggle is we'll be really great at one thing, right? But then we kind of suck at all the rest of them. You know, people can be really, really fit, like just 6% body fat, but maybe their faith life is terrible. Maybe they're hooked on substances. Maybe they're dealing with other things, or maybe fitness is their drug because that's the only thing that makes them feel self-worth. I love fitness. I'm saying get to those 10% body fat, right? Or below it, some maybe a little bit for men, women, obviously a little bit higher, but be this exact 10% body fat in your spiritual life, in your, all those things, you know, was be well-rounded in them all. And that's when it becomes really, really special. So I love, that you shared that. And I love that you're talking about how he shares, you know, his work with you, because most people, when they come home from work, right, it's like, how was your day? Oh, it was pretty good. Oh, that's good. How was your day? Oh, I mean, it was pretty good. You know, okay, cool. You know, what were the kids up to today? Oh, same stuff. And it's like, that's their conversation. Like, it's so boring. And no wonder you don't know each other. Well, then of course you don't want physical intimacy with them because you're not seeing what makes them great. You don't know if they're struggling. So if they happen to snap or get frustrated, you don't know because they're not sharing. We all need to share. As you're hearing Chelsey say, like, she's most turned on by her husband when he's passionate about his work. Like, that's what gets her going, right? Like, so guys, are you doing that? Are you talking in a certain way? Are you sharing the things from your heart that you're doing in your life that your wife should know everything? Because as you're hearing Chelsey talk, we're all faith-based. Well, the Bible says to become one. Well, if you're one, you know all of your spouse's thoughts, struggles, desires, everything. But that only happens if you share them with each other. If not, then you're not one. You're still two in those aspects. So yeah, now we're going down. Well, we can go down this topic forever, but you know, you hinted on being on surrogacy. Yeah. So what you don't know is so Chelsey just gave birth. What, probably like a month ago? Was it?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. It was just about a month ago.
About a month ago. So she's surrogacy for another couple. Like she said, she has 5 kids of her own. And this was such a special story when, you know, they were telling us about it in the beginning, and I was honoring Zach for this the other day when you guys were talking about it, right? Because on top of it, you guys have this busy life everybody's hearing about, let alone carrying somebody else's baby is like a big thing on top of it, especially like, when our wives can be pregnant. There's so many things that
Mm.
come with it. At the end of the day, we know it's our baby. Okay, I'm gonna suck this up. I'm bringing a life, a child into the world for us. You guys are doing it for such a different reason. And I remember this story when you guys were talking about it, and you had brought it to Zach, and Zach, I think you said you maybe were even surprised that he was like, "All right, yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it." Um, and he said, because I envision being in heaven one day and looking around and seeing another child there and knowing, wow, our
Mm.
obedience to above and beyond things that most people would never do, especially like a surrogacy, right? Like that's there partially because of my heart and who I am. Like, he's like, how cool would that be? And I was just
Mm-hmm.
like mind blown by it. Some guys won't let another man drive their car, let alone let somebody else use their wife's body to carry their child, right? So I just thought that was so amazing. It just shows where you guys are at mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and all of those things to be able to do that. How did that dynamic play out in your life, and how did that draw you guys closer and not pull you guys apart?
Well, I think there was a little bit of both too along the way. I mean, we had moments where it was rough because in the beginning I had extra restrictions that I never planned on because for all my 5 kids, like everything went great. Like I never had any issues for the most part. Like it was, um, oh shoot, I lost my headphones. Can you still hear me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
I just heard it like power down. Okay. Um, and so, I mean, I had a 5 pound weight restriction for probably 10 weeks in the beginning. And that
Mm.
was rough because a gallon of milk weighs 8 pounds. So it was challenging. And in that time, it was supposed to be a pretty short, like, no sexual relations, and it was extended longer and then longer. And like so it led to a lot of frustrations between us, and I didn't feel well. And like, so it brought a lot of challenges. And, you know, there were, I mean, there was even a moment where we were looking at each other and we were both frustrated as heck. And I was like, do we regret this? Like, was this a bad choice? Um, and he just, without hesitation, said, absolutely not. Like, we're doing the right thing. We're big boys and girls here. We can, we'll get through this. You know, it's not fun, but that's not the point. And I think the thing that really kept us going was, like, for me, the biggest question I've gotten was, well, how, didn't you get attached to the baby? And, like, I could never do that. And I said, but from the very beginning, I knew what it was like to hold my babies, each of them for the first time, in that moment of that just overwhelming
Mm.
emotion, right? Like, Tommy, you probably remember that too, like just overwhelming. And I was picturing this couple in that, like that first time when they were going to get to hold their baby, not my baby, none of my DNA. It was completely them. And so that's what kept me going, was I am working for that moment. And, and just having the baby a month ago, like that was an amazing moment for me, like such a unique blessing to look over and see the look on their face, just like overwhelming. And like Zach and I were crying because we're watching them, and like that was just what kept me going.
Mm.
And and so for him, I think through that whole process, I don't know exactly what he pictured that really kept him going. I guess I never asked him, probably because I felt sick all the time. But it was just that idea of like this is bigger than us. And you know, we're gonna have us again after this, and we can suck it up for 9 months. And so it was
Mm.
definitely, it was a challenge. And then towards the end, like I had a ton of swelling, and just didn't feel the greatest. I was very large and very swollen and in charge, and not really in charge. And so like there was a lot of there's a lack of intimacy for the most part. And it was a struggle for both of us in different ways. But like I said, it was 100% worth it, but it was still very hard and very challenging.
Mm,
It really was.
mm. Yeah, what a gift. I could imagine that
Yeah.
moment of looking over and seeing these two people who maybe thought they'd never
Hmm.
have a kid ever, and being able to see in that moment. I mean, obviously you're, giving birth to your kids, top 5 moments of your life, right? But I could imagine this was close to being in number 6, in those moments right now, like your top moments of just being, and it's, you're getting things out of it, right? Because it's just that give it's giving somebody an amazing gift, right? Like it's, I don't want to say you're doing it for selfish reasons, but we get something out of it, because it makes us feel good. But like so selfless to be able to see that, that is, I could only imagine that
Yeah.
moment to be able to give that
It was,
to them.
it
How
was pretty
amazing that
awesome. But
is.
yeah, I mean, it was still a struggle. And now, I mean, it's been a month postpartum, and, and we've had some challenges again. Like, you're supposed to wait like the 6 weeks. And I actually had a moment of clarity the other day because, he has grown so much in like how he doesn't put up walls, right? Like, because when he wants to initiate, and if there's a no, then there was a lot of patterns of no for a lot of years, which he put up walls because we don't want to be hurt, right? And so like this postpartum period has kind of brought up a lot of things again for us of like no's, and and honestly, I just had a moment of like, I am being kind of selfish because there are so many other ways we can be intimate besides just intercourse, right? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
so I had this moment of like, gosh, like I am being extremely selfish through this, and like, why am I doing this? And it's funny, as a mindset coach, you'd think I'd have all my thoughts in order, but like, no. Like, I think the reason I became a mindset coach for the biggest part was so I could mindset coach myself and like work through things and have the tools.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was like, I'm being this wife right now, and I've always said I'm my goal is to be an exceptional wife. And I was like, but why in this category of intimacy do I still struggle so much? Like, it doesn't come natural to me. Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
I've built my own walls, and um, and I said, it's like I'm standing at the edge of this cliff, and I'm this wife, and I'm looking at that wife that I want to be, and there's literally nothing holding me back, or there's something holding me back that I just can't figure out that's keeping me from being that, because it's really all just in my mind. Like, if I want to be the fiery, sexy
Mm-hmm.
wife that pounces on her husband, I absolutely could be, right? But so, like, why am I not? And it was just a moment of, oh, shoot, like people pleasing in an effort to control him. Because, like, what he wanted from me and wants now is, he was like, I want you to be demanding of me. Like, I want you to come up to me and tell me, I want to go have sex right now, or like, I want to go on a date, or like, whatever I
Mm-hmm.
want. He's like, I need you to be demanding. And I was like, oh, but to be demanding is to be like kind of a biatch, And like, I had all these stories in my head about being demanding and like saying what I want and when I want it. And I just had this moment of
Mm-hmm.
clarity of, oh my gosh, people pleasing is hurting our intimacy. Because it's not that I'm necessarily like trying to, like, because people pleasing is just a way, like an effort for us to control the emotions of other people. So it's a control thing. And I've been trying to control his emotions, which puts me, and we've talked about this, in this weird stagnant place of like, I know I should go to my husband, but now I feel pressured because I know I
Mm-hmm.
should, and so that should coming in makes translates to pressure. But it was all because of everything going on in my head, like about being demanding. And honestly, I think this was the biggest light bulb for me, that people pleasing is just negatively impacting so many areas of my life, like how I show up on social media, how I interact with other people. It's causing me to tone myself down, to question, what I'm putting out there, how I'm leading myself, like so many
Mm-hmm.
things. And I did not see this until just the other day when I was thinking about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I am the problem, like, and so it's really caused me to shift in how I show up every day. I heard someone say recently that, like, I can tell a wealthy person when they come into a restaurant because they don't hesitate. They order exactly what they want, and they don't hem and haw. And hemming and hawing is like my middle name in the last, I don't know how many years. Oh, hi, buddy. Hang on, buddy. We're almost done. And so I just realized, like, I have these stories in my head going on around this, and I can change it. So I don't remember what your original question was on that, but like, I just feel like that's something that people need to hear. And that when it comes to our intimacy, and like specifically like during the surrogacy and the postpartum period, like, there are things that we're doing in our own minds to ourselves that we alone have the power to change, but we have to have that awareness and curiosity about it first in order to do that. And yeah, it's such a crazy thing. It really is. It really is.
No, I love the boldness. As I know, that was like actually one of the questions I was going to ask you, is I know that was like, you were saying that I'm not going to be people pleaser this year. It was like, you mentioned that to me the other day, and I love that because it is hard, right? It's so hard that we feel we need like acceptance from everybody. I know I have like, it's like a struggle of mine, is because I was the shyest kid in my high school. I didn't kiss a girl until I was out of high school. Like, I feel the need to be accepted and liked by everybody. But I know I started realizing this in my coaching last year, that like, okay, dude, you just want your clients to like you. You want to get them transformations, but you need to freaking tell them the truth, dude, because they're going to probably maybe be mad. Maybe they won't. But at least you're going to change their life, and they'll know why they're sucking in life. Tell them the freaking truth.
Well, because you probably didn't like
and
yourself
so
either when you were trying to be liked by everybody. I don't like who I am when I'm trying to be liked by everybody, including my husband. And it's in a weird thing because I'm trying to be this version of myself that's just not me. And it's making such a negative impact on how I'm interacting and showing up with him, which is the complete opposite of what he actually wants and who God made me to be. Like,
I know. That's conforming to the patterns of the world, like that we're just talking about Romans 12 too, right? Because it's not you. It's almost like we're sleeping on a waterbed, remember waterbeds back then? Because like, we're just like, one day we're feeling, okay, I'm going to be bold today. One day I'm not. One day I am. I'm in the middle. And it's just like, man, it's uneasy. But when you just put your foot in the ground and say, well, this is who I am, not in being an a-hole with that, but this is what I believe, and I'm going to be loving as best possible. I'll change and mold and grow as I go, but I'm not going to base my decisions on all 8 billion people in this world, because good Lord, I don't care what you do, you're not going to be liked by them all. And so I love that about you in that way, because I'm growing more towards that myself in certain things, where it's like, sometimes I go to put out a post and I'm like, this is really good, but I don't want to put it out because I already know that hate that's going to come my way. And I want to be liked, but I also know that this is what's going to change their life, that they need to hear. And this will also be for the people that actually want to hear it. As the Bible says, he who has ears, let them hear, right? My ideal person to work with will be like, he's right, I need that. Not all the other Joe Blows who want to think that their wife's the problem or everything else is the problem in the world rather than themselves. So I love that boldness of you in those things. And I love for Zach for saying wants that out of you as well, because that's what I want from Diane too. It's like, let's just speak our truths with everybody.
Like, do you want me to be demanding? Like, even when he said it, I really struggled to wrap my mind around it, because it like caught me off guard and just surprised me so much, because I was like, I don't even know if I know how to do that right now, but I like it and I'm curious, and I think I would like to be more like that, because at the very essence of who God made me to be, that does align more with my personality. Like, I think you said someone was savage, and like terms like rebel and, those are the things, those are the words that like I feel like enlivened, emboldened when I think about those kinds of words, because that's really who God made me to be. Like, he made me bold. He made me, all these things. And I think that there's a way that we can do that and be strong and strong facing, and yet also still have love, right? Like Jesus did. he was like, "Be gone, Satan," or like, "Get behind me, Satan," but he's still like in those
Yeah.
moments of like flipping tables and like holding the line on truth, and yet he still was love. And I think that is what I want to be. Like, someone called me nice the other day and I literally got mad. Like, I was mad about it. Like, I don't want to be nice. Like, I'm sick of being nice. Like, that's not Chelsey in 2024 going forward, because it's just not, doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to be authentic, right? There's this other marriage coach, amazing coach. I was listening to him on a podcast the other day. He's got very similar beliefs as like leadership is what it is, be a great parent, you know, provide money, take physically care of yourself, all these other things. That was what really tracks. And anyways, he was on this podcast. Well, I don't say he's not struggling with his faith. Let's put it that way. He's figuring it out in certain ways, where he was like a pastor pulled back, and he's like, he believes in God. He's just not sure 100% on Christianity and all these things. He's in this weird spot where normally I would have been like, writing him off, but he was so authentic and real on this podcast, the way he was loving and speaking. And we've communicated a little bit. And at the end of the day, I reached out to him and I just said, brother, I appreciate your authenticity. And thank you for being who you are, because even though it didn't agree with what I said, at the end of the day, it was the best version of himself, was his authentic self. And so I just loved his authentic self. And so I let him know that, even though his views don't align with me on like spiritual stuff. Can you hear me now, Chelsey?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. My headphones died.
I'm going to turn you down here real quick though, because those speakers are louder.
Okay.
Basically what I was saying was that there was this guy, he's a marriage coach, and he was on a podcast, but he was super authentic. His faith views are a little bit different than mine, but I messaged him afterwards and we've had a little bit of communication, but I just honored him. And I was like, bro, you came across so good on that podcast. Your authenticity really, really showed through. And cause sometimes I see some of the things, sometimes he like definitely does things in life that I don't agree with, but I wanted to let him know I saw him for his authenticity, and that meant more to me than maybe the things that I don't agree with that he's doing. Because that's at the end of the day, as long as we're authentic, then we'll all be working towards the truth. But if we're all fake, we're never heading the wrong direction from the actual truth. So
yeah,
that's where that's at. So I know it's getting to the end. Your headphones died. And it's 57
yeah, they
minutes.
pieced out on me. What the heck?
And Bo's ready for you to come back. But Chelsey, this has been absolutely amazing. Like I said, you're doing so many things in your business, and you have your own podcast, and you have all these other things. Let the people know who want to connect with Chelsey. And you guys got to follow her on social media. I always tell Diane, I'm like, man, Chelsey blows us out of the water with her social media, like how much she's posting and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, her schedule is far busier than me and you, babe. Like, we got to step it up. So you're an amazing follow. Give the people where they can follow you, how can they reach out to, whether that's for coaching, if they're in MLMs and they need grow that, or they want to just get you on social or whatever that may be. Give them the goods.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Those are my two, and I don't really go out from there. I'm not on the tiki-taki. I think I am, but I don't do it. I don't do Snapchat. But yeah, so on Instagram, I'm Chelsey_Noel. Chelsey is Chelsey. That my dad didn't know any other way to spell it, which is funny because like most people spell it SEA. And then I'm also on Facebook, Chelsey Noel Holm. And you can follow me on there. I have some groups on there just for people who are specifically in social selling, who are looking for some mindset coaching. I know a lot of times in network marketing, people don't necessarily have uplines or people who are working with them. And so that's who I really love to help, is the people who want to be helped, but just don't know where to start or where to turn. But those are the two primary places. And then my podcast is the Chelsey Noel Holm podcast, and it's on anywhere. You can search for it, primarily iTunes.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody go check her out. Like, go listen to that stuff. As you can see, she's amazing and whatnot. So thank you so much, Chelsey. This was an absolute blast. I didn't know Zach would have wanted to be on, or I would have had him on too, but we'll do a solo one with him. I'll get him on here and people can get his leadership as well on here. So thank you so much for jumping on here. Everybody, God bless you. Have an amazing day. We'll see you later.